Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Happy new moon in Cancer. On July 5th, we have an amazing, stunning new moon in Cancer, and it occurs at about 14 degrees of the sign. This new moon is making beautiful connections in the sky. It is next to Venus, which is also in Cancer. It is making a trine to Saturn, which is stabilizing our emotions and whatever it is that we're initiating to create more emotional security for ourselves. And it's even making a bit of a wide sextile to Mars in Taurus, just enhancing the stability. So I wanted to take a few minutes to talk to you, not just about this new moon, but about the energy of family dynamics in a horoscope and how you can really tell if someone is a family person or if family is not as much of a priority. And so I'm going to backtrack because some of you are new here. So my name is Maria D. Simone. I'm a professional astrologer. You can find out more about me and my work over at insightfulastrology.com, where I have an entire astrology school offering classes from the beginner's level all the way through advanced. And right now, if you are interested, registration is open for my Aspects in Astrology class. This class will start August 17th, and it will teach you how to connect the dots in a birth chart. If you already know how to look at a horoscope and determine the meaning of the planets, the signs, the houses, if you understand the basic structure of a birth chart, but you're looking now to connect those dots and go to the next step, which is aspect analysis, and to really think astrologically for yourself, this is the class to take. All of my classes are personalized using your charts in the homework assignments, in the lesson plans. I have an amazing student community. We are family. We are astrology family. I nurture my students as if you were my own. Really, literally, I take you all in and I very deeply invest in my students and in the student community. So I hope you decide to join us. The early bird registration rate is open right now for the next couple of weeks, and it saves you $50 off of tuition. So if you're interested in joining this class, go to insightfulastrology.com and claim your spot. So, as for those of you who know me, who know my work, you may know that I just recently returned from Italy. And I went to Italy to primarily to visit my family. And so I am a first generation Italian, which means my father immigrated here from Italy when he was about 17 years old. And he and his family, my father's side of the family, they're from a town in Italy near in Naples called Rocca Rainola. It is a small farm town in the mountains of Italy. And all my life, I grew up being raised with these Napolitan, Italian values, very much connected to family. Okay, I have always been a deep family person. My mother's side of the family was also from Naples. My mother was born in America, though, but her grandparents were born in Naples, the town of Nola, the town of Avella. So it's all basically, if you get a map of Naples and you see these towns, they're all about 10, 15 minutes from each other. And so as I was having this experience, which was a bucket list experience for me, all of my life, I always wanted to physically be where my father and my uncles and my aunts and my nonna and my nono were raised, where they lived. And I waited until this year of my life to be able to do that. And I was so fortunate to be able to do that. And this was deeply meaningful to me. I mean, like I said, bucket list. And that is primarily because if you were to look at my horoscope, my chart ruler, I have Aries rising, and that makes my chart ruler Mars. And Mars is in the sign of Cancer, and it is exactly conjunct the fourth house cusp of my birth chart. And that really means my soul's most immediate purpose is very much driven to connect to my heritage, my roots. Mars is on the third house cusp, leaning into the fourth house. So it's also in the third house of communications and teaching. And that's also obviously part of my life path and purpose. But it is moving towards the fourth house cusp. So that has motivated me all of my life to be deeply driven. I am one of those family over everything people. And people who know me, I'm pretty unapologetic about that. And I recognize that not everybody has that situation, not everybody has that blessing, not everybody wants that for themselves, and that's okay. Uh, if you are not interested in learning more about the astrology of family, please just, keep it moving. You don't have to leave any negative comments. This video is probably not for you. But if you are interested in understanding why some people astrologically are more driven to pursue family connections, to maintain family connections, then this video is going to be interesting to you. And I will be sharing some of my personal family stories connected to Italy in between. And so I'm going to start by telling you something about the sign of Cancer that most people don't realize. The sign Cancer, in and of itself, is not about family. That's right. The sign Cancer is about initiating emotional security, pursuing emotional security for oneself. Because Cancer is a cardinal water sign, and Cancer by itself, and it is a feminine sign, so it is internal, it is intuitive. Cancer by itself, even though we in modern astrology have conflated it to connect very much to family, by itself, the sign Cancer isn't necessarily about family. You can have tons of Cancer planets in your birth chart and not be the type of person who wants to be a homemaker, baking cookies all day, or or a man puttering around the house, doing projects, or having, 5 children. Just because you have a lot of Cancer planets, that doesn't make you a family person in and of itself. Cancer planets tell us in astrology that you are driven to initiate, to create, to pursue emotional security in an ambitious way, in whatever way that is for you. So if your Cancer planets, for example, are all in your 10th house of career, well, you're going to be very focused on creating that emotional security through your career success. If all those Cancer planets are in your 7th house of partnership, you're going to create that emotional security through partnership. Okay, so you get the idea here? Well, where then are you going to look to find out what family energy is about in your birth chart? It is not a sign, it is a house in your birth chart. The 4th house in your birth chart, so at the bottom of your chart, that 4th house cusp, also known as the nadir or the IC. IC stands for Imum Coeli in Latin, which means lower heavens. Your 4th house is the area of your chart that speaks to your roots, your heritage, your family, and your parents. That is the house. That is the house that connects to your family of origin and your family of creation. And if you are someone who has planets in the 4th house, then you're going to energetically be more motivated to pursue family connections or to have family interactions and energy and a lot of experiences relating to family in your life. If your 4th house is empty, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be motivated for family energy. What you do, and I teach this extensively in my beginner's class, you do what I call weaving the web of a birth chart, and it's really based on rulership dynamics. So what you do if you have no planets in your 4th house is you go to that 4th house cusp and you look to the sign that's on your 4th house cusp. Let's say you have the sign Leo on your 4th house cusp. Well, Leo is a sign that is ruled by the sun. So what you're then going to do is find where your sun is located in your birth chart by sign, by house, and then look at the aspects that the sun makes. And that's going to tell you about your family story. So there are ways to understand your family dynamics and your family story in your birth chart. And that is, that's a very basic, just, short, quick, easy way to do it. You also want to study the sign that's on your 4th house cusp, because that tells you about your approach to family and energy, your approach to your home and how you like to live. We're not going to go through all that in this video. I'm just letting you know, your takeaway, what I need your takeaway to be is please don't assume that just because somebody has a lot of Cancer planets, that that means they are a huge family person. Now, often you will find that that's the case because a lot of us get our emotional security from our family roots, our family dynamic. But the sign Cancer by itself is not where you look in your birth chart to find out about family. Fourth houses, your fourth house story, and any planets that might be in your fourth house, as well as your fourth house ruler. Okay. So now, this particular new moon in Cancer might, on July 5th, it might not be falling in your fourth house. It's only going to fall in your fourth house if you have Aries rising, like I do. Um, so it may not necessarily be about family. But the fact that I just came back from Italy and we're having this new moon in Cancer is what's inspiring me to talk about the astrology of family a little more deeply. This particular new moon is exactly conjunct my fourth house cusp. I have my Mars at about 11 degrees Cancer, and I have my fourth house cusp at 13 and change of Cancer. And like I said, this new moon is 14. So right now, as of the filming of this video, I have Venus in Cancer in my fourth house already transiting, and I've got this new moon that's about to happen tomorrow right there. So I'm just energetically in that zone to talk about family. And so I just wanted to share some really interesting insights about family energy that I realized, I feel very blessed, truly. Now, even though I have a malefic planet, Mars is a malefic. As a matter of fact, I have the two malefic planets in Cancer. I have Saturn and Mars in Cancer, and they are conjunct each other. Saturn is like just under 2 degrees, so it's more on the third house side. It, if you use the whole sign house system, however, both Saturn and Mars go into the fourth house. So even though I have the two malefics connected to my fourth house in the sign Cancer, I am a huge family over everything person. And I am not the kind of person who will ever disown family, who will ever even if something negative happens in our family dynamic, which it does, no family is perfect. We all have ups and downs. I'm not that, I'm not capable of being that person who's going to say, I'm cutting you off. You're not part of my family anymore. Even if I've been personally hurt. And I'm not saying this is the best course of action for all of you. I fully recognize there are many cases where a family member can be abusive or toxic and really harmful, and you want to break free from some of those negative patterns. My choice and my path is more about fighting for family. It's more about sticking things out and working through things. That might not be your path, but I'm just talking to you about my experiences in this video. So when going back to the whole Italy thing, when I was really, really lucky because my Uncle Sal, who is my father's brother, even though he lives in America with us, he has a house with his girlfriend, long term, like 30 years. They should be married. Long term girlfriend, Maria, they have a house in Avella. It's actually technically her house from her family. But Avella is about 10, 15 minutes from Roccarainola, and Uncle Sal and Maria happened to be there. They were there for a couple of months already when I went to Naples. So Uncle Sal was my personal tour guide and picked me and the people, family members and friends I was traveling with in Naples. He picked us up in the city of Naples where our apartment was at 9 in the morning one day and drove us to Roccarainola and took us through a complete tour of the town, and then took us to Avella, where I have cousins, and we had a lunch, a beautiful meal there. So he gets to Naples, picks us up. Now, what I'm going to tell you is a series of stories that blend family dynamics and divinely guided spiritual stuff. Okay. This is my opportunity to share with you some of the most incredible, definitely, spirit was guiding this trip. And my mother had her hand in it. My nona, my nono, I am sure of it. And when you hear these stories, I think you'll agree, you'll understand. So we start driving to Roccarainola. And as we're talking, I say to my Uncle Sal, I just found out at Father's Day barbecue at my sister's house. I didn't realize this, but my mother's side of the family is from a town called Nola. Have you ever been there? And he said, yeah, yeah, I'm taking your cousins swimming there tomorrow at the pool there. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so as we're talking about that, all of a sudden, my Uncle Sal, who, you know, normally he's pretty good with the roads and driving and everything, he's in Italy all the time, he took a wrong turn. And he did it by accident. He was really pissed off about this because we had so many people in the car. There were four people sandwiched in the back seat, and I'm in the front. And so he wanted to get everybody there. He knew that they weren't very comfortable in the back. He took this wrong turn, and then in the navigation, it rerouted us to the town of Nola. What are the freaking odds of that? He had no choice but to drive through the town of Nola in order to get us to Rocarainola when that was not his original plan. That's not the route he was going. And it was like my mother said from Spirit, okay, you're going to see your father's town. Well, guess what? You're going to take a detour and I'm going to make you see the town I was from, that my side of the family was from. So that was kind of cool that we did that. So that was our little diversion. Then we get to Rocarainola after that. And now keep in mind, this is a town. I don't know the population, but it's a few thousand. It is not a gigantic town. It's not small, small, but it's not a city, super big. It's a farm town in the mountains. And so we get to the beginning of Rocarainola, and we stop for coffee. None of us had breakfast or espresso or anything yet. So we see this cafe at a corner, and we said, "All right, Uncle Sal, let's stop there. Let's get a little breakfast, a little espresso." And we go, and immediately the first people that we see in the town are sitting there in the cafe, and we're related to them. And so my Uncle Sal goes up to them and talks to this man who happens to be married to one of my cousins who lives in the town. And he was next to another man whose name was Pasquale, who grew up with my father. They were childhood friends. They used to play soccer together in the town and hang around. And I was just like, I can't believe it. I'm here all of 3 minutes and I'm already meeting a cousin and one of my father's close childhood friends. It was just incredible. So we took pictures, we had our coffee, then we started to go on the tour. So my uncle then drives into the driveway of a cousin of mine. So you have to understand, farming is a big deal in my father's side of the family. My father grew up farming on a farm, family owned farms, and that's how it was. So my cousin Carmine, who is my father's first cousin, and I think that makes him my second cousin. I always get confused about that. Um, he owns all of the farms now that were in the family. They're now all his. He is the exclusive farmer of the family. And so we go to Carmine and his wife Giovanna's house because my uncle wanted to park the car in their driveway so that we could just walk around the town. And Carmine was in the farm doing work, so he wasn't there. But Giovanna was there. So Giovanna greets us, this beautiful, warm, older Italian woman in her house dress, and she's talking Italian. Nobody speaks English. And so she says, "Yeah, yeah, you leave your car there, but first you have to come in." Now, this is how Italians are. You got to come in, and they're going to feed you, even if you don't want to eat. So it was really, really hot, and we were sweating. And so she comes out with this big jar, not jar, glass bottle of blue water. And we were like, what is this? So she pours it all for us and we're drinking it. Now, it didn't taste good, it didn't taste bad, but it was so refreshing and it was exactly what we needed. So my assumption is that it was some kind of version of electrolytes, like you would have in America, Gatorade or Pedialyte, but in Italy, it was just this blue water. And so she gave us that, and then she made us coffee and was giving us snacks and this and that. And we were talking, looking at photo albums, and it was the first time that I realized how in my family, everybody lives together. We keep our families together. It's just how it is. So they live on, I guess, compounds. I don't know what else to call it. So it's basically the mother and father of the family have the house, the land, and then they have their children. And as their children get married, they build on so that they have their own homes or their own apartments within the land. So they're all together, but they all have their privacy, their space. And so the family unit is always together. So you ultimately end up with the grandparents, the the parents, the children. So it's always all of these generations living together. And so she showed us all around, and it's such a beautiful thing to me because the family unit is so valued in Italy, at least in this part of Italy that I'm from, that everybody takes care of each other. So you are guaranteed to age and to know that there's family to take care of you when you're elderly and you need help. And when you have children, you know that there's always someone there to help out with the children because it does take a village, right? So I just loved that. I loved seeing that there were multiple families living on this land here. And so we then left Giovanna's house, and well, actually, not until we met Carmine. So Carmine comes down from the farm, and he came for his lunch break, and he had these filthy jeans, full of sweat, big smile on his face, and one dog on each side. The most peaceful, gentle man I think I have ever met, and I wish I could have communicated better with him. And he did say in Italian that he is the happiest man alive when he is on his farm, away from people, and it's just him and nature and the dogs. And I mean, I as a tourist, I just felt this man's peace, and I said, "Wow, I feel you, dude. I totally feel you." So it was beautiful to meet the farmer of the family because he kept the farm alive. And you have to realize that when my grandfather ran the farm, many, many moons ago, he planted hazelnut trees and then he died. And what ended up happening is these hazelnut trees grew to be a big deal. And hazelnuts now are a big part of what they grow and how they make money. And I just think there's so interesting to me that there's just so much history there. So anyway, we leave that house and we go to take a tour. My uncle shows me where my father went to school, where he would play soccer, where my cousin before he came to America and opened up a successful pastry shop where he had a bar. He showed me three different places where they lived. He showed me where all multiple family members lived. He showed me where my family had their cantina, where my grandfather and family used to make the wine in the town. And everybody in the town would come to their cantina to drink their wine and eat food. There would be like the little food, I guess you call it a restaurant, whatever you call it, and everybody would come and enjoy the wine that my Nono and Nono's family made. And I thought that was just so cool that, everybody knows everybody in this town. And so we could not walk 5 feet without running into somebody that I was either related to, or if any human that we ran into, my Uncle Sal knows them and they were talking, and everybody knows everybody in this town. It was just so awesome. So I wasn't able to see the actual farm because it's higher on the mountain, and the car that we were in had too many people. It was too much weight. It didn't work out. And so unfortunately, I didn't get to see the farm, and that was part of my bucket list. So I'm going to have to go back because I have open invitations now for my multiple relatives to come and stay with them. So I will be going back, and I'm going to see that farm someday. So then after that, we went to another relative's house who cousins, my cousin Antoinette, and her husband, and their family, and it was the same situation. It's like the family lives with the family. The people who never got married, the siblings that never got married, they still live there. It was amazing. I have one cousin, her brother, who's a priest. He lives there, so we met, we hung out. She made us eat. We had to have coffee all over again. We had to eat all over again. And then we finally finished touring Roccarainola, and we went to Avella, the next town. Now, this is where my Uncle Sal's house is, and this is where my cousin Vito and his wife Maria and daughter Auxilia, who's also my cousin, is where they live. Now, there's a big story with this. And if you've stayed with me this long, don't click off now because I promise you this story is worth listening to. So I have to go back 15 years. About 15 years ago, I was a newer astrologer. I've been doing this for about 20-ish years now. But what happened about 15 years ago is that my cousin Vito and his wife Maria and their daughter, my cousin Altilia, and her new husband Antonio came to New York to visit. They came to America to visit. And it was the summer. And they came to visit because Altilia was very depressed. She was very depressed because she had just given birth to their first child, and the first child was a stillborn baby. So she had to give birth to a baby that was dead. And she was filled with grief, her and her husband. And so the parents, Vito and Maria, were trying to lift her up. And they said, you know what, let's take you to New York to see family in New York and to see America. And maybe that'll help you feel better. So they come to my mother and father's house for a barbecue, and I'm there with my kids. And I was a newer astrologer, but I already had a big platform at that time. Tarot.com was syndicating my weekly video horoscopes. So I had a very large audience, and everybody in Italy knew who I was. And they were into astrology. And so my Uncle Sal's girlfriend, Maria, was at this barbecue, and she speaks fluent Italian. And Altilia, who was really into astrology, started asking if I would look at her birth chart and her husband's birth chart to tell them when they were going to have another baby. Now, I didn't want to do this because they were showing me a picture of their stillborn baby. And this is what they do in Italy. That's how they grieve. They show you pictures of the dead. And so for me, that was new. I was looking at this picture of this newly passed baby and looking at the grieving parents and being told by Maria Aldino and my mother. My mother was also part of this plan, saying, Maria, no, sit down. You're going to do their astrology. So Maria and my mother made me do the charts of Maria and her husband, Altilia, and her husband, Antonio. And by the grace of God, I mean, that was a lot of pressure for me. You have to realize that was hard. I was able to tell them, yes, you will have another baby. I looked at their charts, I studied their cycles, and I said, I see another child for you by next November. And that's what I said. Ended the conversation, enjoyed the barbecue. I figured, all right, I'm never going to see them again. I hope that, I was helpful to them. And I had to let go of the prediction, which is what I always do when I have clients. I see what I see, I communicate it as best as I can, and then I move on with my life. So that's what I did. And then it turned out that they did, in fact, have a healthy boy that November, the following November. So this is my cousin. His name is Fiori. He's going to be 14 years old this November. So I met him when I was in Italy. So I went to Avella. Now you have to realize I then became this like elevated Mother Teresa hero, Saint Strega in Italy to my family because I made that prediction for them. And they never forgot that. And so we've always stayed connected on Facebook, and I've seen her children. She ended up having a daughter and the son, so she has two beautiful children now. And when we went there, I was welcomed with the warmest, most amazing love and hugs. It was, I mean, I am telling you, the language barrier didn't even matter. There was just such a deep family connection there. So we had an amazing meal. And one of the other things that I realized about how lucky I am is that I grew up authentically Napolitan in terms of the family unit, family values. I grew up on a block with all family. My grandparents lived upstairs. My cousins lived on the entire block. Even my father's family lived across the street for a short amount of time. It was always family. And I grew up eating authentic Napolitan food every single day that either my nonna cooked, my mother cooked, my zia cooked, and then as I got older, I cooked. And I didn't realize that to me, that's normal, but that's not normal for everybody else. And so as we're eating in Naples, while I was there for the 4 days in Naples, everything I put into my mouth tasted familiar. It was like, oh, this is what we eat every day. And that's a blessing that I don't take for granted. And so we had a beautiful meal. And here's where the story about the child gets, it's like a full circle moment. This is what I mean about this trip has been divinely guided. So one of the people that I was traveling with is my cousin Joe, who is a psychic medium. And he does this work full time. You've probably seen him on my podcast. You can Google psychic medium Joseph Peretta if you want more information. And he was there. And so Altilia, after we're eating, as we're enjoying this incredible semifreddo dessert, which was like a ricotta ice cream cake with pears inside to die for, we're enjoying all this. And she's saying to Joe, um, can you channel spirit for me? So Joe had a feeling that they were going to ask. And he was like, okay, sure, no problem. So the baby came through and he started getting some specific messages about that the baby was communicating, which was just bringing Artelia to tears, but in a good way. And what we didn't know, what we had no way of knowing, is that that day that we were there, what are the odds of this, people? That specific day, it was June 18th. I didn't know this. That was the day she gave birth to that stillborn baby all those years ago. So I guess it was 15 years ago or so, or 16. I'm losing my years right now. But isn't that crazy? What are the odds that I would be there and that I would be there with my cousin Joe, who speaks to the dead, and it would be on that specific day, and the baby would be channeled, and I got to meet the child, my cousin, who I predicted. It was just mind blowing. What a mind blowing day that was. And so we had an amazing day. And then we went out on their balcony. They have this beautiful view from their home in Avella, gorgeous mountains everywhere, and you can see Mount Vesuvio. You can see the volcano Vesuvio from their balcony. I mean, it's far off in the distance, but it's right there. And so we were on the balcony, and then all of a sudden I got called inside, and they asked me to come downstairs. Altelia's apartment is downstairs. So she brings me downstairs, and was, she grabbed my finger, and she took this ring. So I don't know if you could see. This is like a little bell, like pave diamonds, I think, but I don't think it's real. I don't think it's real at all, because she said it was not valuable, but it was sentimental. And she put it on my finger, and she said, I just wanted to give you something sentimental so that we're always connected. And that just meant the world to me. And I'm not a huge jewelry person. I will wear jewelry if it's like real diamonds or real elegant, something real emerald or something like that. It's got to be classy and elegant, or I will wear it if it's sentimental. And this is extremely sentimental to me. So it was just such an incredible day. And then after that, we went to my Uncle Sal's home in Avella, and he gave us this cantaloupe. Um, it's like Meloncello, it's called. It was this frozen cantaloupe liqueur that he made to die for. Took us for a tour around his house in his area in Avella. And I have this open invitation to stay with multiple relatives in Italy, in Naples, whenever I want. And it just made me so happy to be connected physically to my roots, to my heritage, to where my father and my uncles and my aunts were born and raised, and where my nona was from and my nono. It meant so much to me. And again, trying to bring back the point of this video, if you stayed with me, it is because my birth chart has a very significant energy that connects to family motivation. Family over everything is a big deal for me because Mars, my chart ruler, is conjunct my fourth house cusp. Yes, it's in the sign Cancer, but it's because it's right there, and it is making a beautiful trine to Jupiter in my chart. And Jupiter rules my ninth house. Jupiter is in my 12th and rules my ninth. That Saturn Mars conjunction is trine Jupiter. And I really think that that is why there is so many blessings, even though family life has not been easy for me because the two malefics are there. There's been a lot of heartache and loss and suffering and adversity and violent energy with Mars there. You know, there's going to be violent energy. And yes, that has happened in my life for sure. But no matter what, I am always motivated to connect to my roots and my family. And I have so much love, like a ferocity, big mama bear energy around family. So, if you have listened to this video up until the end, I want you to tell me in the comments, what does your fourth house look like? What is the sign on the cusp of your fourth house? What planets do you have in your fourth house? Or if not, what planet rules your fourth house? How does that help you understand more about your fourth house family dynamic story? And does it help explain why you are a major family person or why you might not be? Why that might not be your big driving force and energy in this lifetime? And there's no right or wrong because we all have different paths in life. We all have different purposes, reasons for being here, lessons to learn, experiences to have. So I am just sharing the family energy in this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. And it's great to see you, great to be back. And I will talk to you soon. Have an amazing day. Bye.